The Reverend Elizabeth Magnum Lott currently serves as the pastor of St. Charles Avenue Baptist Church in New Orleans, Louisiana. And for 6 years, she has been leading this congregation to even greater community engagement with programs dedicated to the strengthening of matters of economic and racial justice. And yes, Al Mohler, women can preach. Elizabeth belongs to the greater BTSR community, the community of the towel bearers. She graduated from BTSR in 2008 with a Master of Divinity. She has also served the Northminster Baptist Church on Westwood and Mosside, and with husband Nathan, daughter Julia, son Turner. They all belong to the Northside Ginter Park community for over a decade. You are one of us, Elizabeth. A native of Mobile, Alabama, she completed undergraduate studies in religion at Samford University in 1995. Strongly influenced by the Church of the Covenant in Birmingham, Alabama, she continues to create community where there are divisions and to speak directly to issues of faith and justice. This is where I saw Elizabeth Lott at work. In the course on Appalachian religion that I taught deep in the mountains of western North Carolina. For 2 weeks, Elizabeth and 20 other students from other divinity schools and seminaries all over met to live together and to learn about those mountains in the coldest January on record, or so it seemed. A diverse group of students from various places. The learning was sometimes tense and uncomfortable as we visited snake-handling churches, solitary farms, and tried to understand the cultural habits of mountain people. I remember one evening after several days of intense learning, challenging old habits and traditions, the class members seemed to be particularly fragmented. Some were even considering leaving the course. Elizabeth began a plan. Why don't we just have a big community dinner? She gathered us into a plan with specific strategy. One would go down the mountain and buy the groceries. One would cut the chicken fryer into pieces with a huge kitchen knife. And then we were instructed to come to the table with the smells of fried chicken and mashed potatoes, where flowers and placemats had been lovingly placed. And we ate, and we lingered at the table, and we talked, and we ate some more. Elizabeth had worked her magic. A diverse and divisive group of people, of disconnected folk, became a real group of connections through good food, loving care, lots of good open conversation, and the presence of the Spirit in the place. That is Elizabeth Lott. And that's why, Elizabeth, we invited you here today. Come to our table, Reverend Lott, and talk to us. We're so glad that you're here. Come. Set a good table.
It was the coldest January on record, and it was too cold, in fact, for Bill Leonard to get us up the mountain. So we spent some time at Wake Forest Divinity School before we began, and we're sitting in a conference room there, each student going around the table introducing themselves and saying a bit about what we understood our vocational calling to be. So it came to me, I think I was near the end, Linda sitting to my right, and I just kind of blathered on the way I do sometimes. I'm Elizabeth Lott at Baptist Theological Seminary at Richmond, and I don't really know what I want to do, but I want to serve the local church because I feel really called to parish ministry, something like this. And Linda McKinnish Bridges, her eyes were wide open, like I'd performed a magic trick. And she said, "Don't you understand? I started that seminary for you. We started the Baptist Theological Seminary at Richmond for women like you to have a place to come and be trained, to have pulpits in which to preach, to be sent and called to serve in pastoral ministry." I could tell stories like that about so many of you who are here today, but that's not why I'm here. So with that, President Bridges, faculty, staff, trustees, alumni, friends, and family who have traveled, newly transferring seminarians, and 2019 graduates, it's an honor to be with you on this marking day. This morning, we celebrate the accomplishments of these 21 students and their commitment to service in the church and in the world. Today, we also hold some sacred space for what has been and what will be. As Beth has already said, we are all over the map when it comes to our thoughts and feelings today. And I find it is a whole lot better to just name that and make a space for it, set a place at the table. There's an empty one right there. And just hold out those complexities. It's so much better to do that than pretend everything's fine, it's going to be okay. That's what my mother taught me to say. Different than most any other commencement across the country this May, we are standing in the middle of all kinds of transitions right now. We have a whole lot going on in our hearts and in our minds. Some of us here in this room are here with some anger. Some people watching online at home needed a private space to be able to sit. Many of us are heart sick. Others are calmly stating what must be. The pioneers among us want to blaze a new trail and show us, if you could just see it, all the new possibilities for innovation and a vibrant future. I suspect some folks want to keep holding a roadmap that might take us back to what was familiar and good for a time. And then there are the ones who have come carrying the burial shrouds and are ready to bless this ending. We are all over the place, and that's okay. Today, we still bless and love each other in the midst of our grief, no matter how it is manifesting. I want to start with a word of blessing for every person who's part of this story, whether you are holding your ground as part of an insular tribe, or you're just here to try to love on everybody and love your way through it with as many people as you can hug. Whether you are weeping your way to the end or white-knuckling your rage and despair, whether you are numb with resignation or deeply feeling the grief, or just wildly open to the whole range of emotions on this day, however you come, peace be with you. Thank you for welcoming me into this space today, not as one who's been part of the most recent years in BTSR's life, but as one who is grateful for her legacy, as one who she trained to be the teller of an old, old story, as Cecil Sherman would say. And guess what, class of 19? This is the church into which you are being sent. This is the church many of you are already serving. This is the state of the church we love. Has anyone told you that? If not, let me be the first to welcome you to the life and work of the pastor in 2019. I would teach a very different course than Dr. Sherman did all those years ago. I'd venture to say that those of us in transitional ministry settings, that is, standing between what has been and what will be, have no idea what we are doing half of the time. In any given week, as Linda has already alluded, at the historic St. Charles Avenue Baptist Church of New Orleans, I am a building manager, an entrepreneur, a social justice warrior, a community organizer, an institutional innovator, a therapist, a development director, a wounded healer, a custodian, a really bad bookkeeper, a nonprofit executive director, a midwife, a hospice chaplain, and a preacher. I am simultaneously preparing something old for burial while trying to assist in the birth of something new. I am pastoring in the ways of the 20th century while chasing the Spirit's guidance for the 21st. I have a lot of moments of thinking maybe, just maybe my congregation and I are going to pull this thing off, and we're going to make a sustainable way forward for this worshiping community that serves the neighbors and the common good. But between you and me, sometimes all it takes is one of those days when New Orleans gets a hard rain for 6 hours and wants to reclaim itself as a swamp, and the building floods, and I nearly think it's time to put that for sale sign in the yard and just sit back and watch that thing go condo. Everything is changing in American religious life. It isn't all changing at the same pace or in the same ways, but the institution we knew and loved, the very ones that formed and shaped and sent us, are changing forever. They are changing forever. And you, my friends, are called to work and serve and love for this season of transformation. Dr. Phyllis Rogerson Pleasance was warned I would speak of her as she told us over and over and over and over and over and over again of the paradigm shift. We wrote the papers, we studied the tome, we knew conceptually that the paradigm, whatever it was shifting. Dr. Phyllis Tickle is the one who made famous the image of the church's rummage sale every 500 years, and we preachers have found some comfort in bringing that image out every now and then to harmlessly remind ourselves and each other that what we're experiencing has happened before and it'll happen again. Church, after all, is bigger than our collective memory. Paradigms shift. Rummage sales are necessary. But then Dr. Dan Bagby and Dr. Israel Galindo taught us of human nature and family systems that seek homeostasis. We creatures don't like change. We don't enjoy paradigm shifts, and we don't particularly enjoy rummage sales. In this rummage sale, we're releasing that which no longer serves in order to make room for what comes next. That sounds nice and hopeful and promising. But if you have had a parent or grandparent die and been through the process of cleaning out your childhood home and deciding who gets the box of love letters found in the attic, who gets the beloved Christmas ornaments, what are we going to do with Mother's 75 church hats, who will deal with your father's hoarding problem made evident in the garage, and who's going to put your sister-in-law in place when she tries to put her name on the family armoire? Well, that's decidedly more complicated, isn't it? The life and work of the pastor in 2019 is decidedly more complicated than it was 30 years ago when BTSR came to life. Graduates, whatever your careers may end up looking like, know that you are serving a church in a season of simultaneous death and birth. And that means you will be making up a lot of things as you go. There is no roadmap for this. No MDiv course or MTS focus or practical theology training can fully prepare you because we are experiencing all of this in real time. But we're experiencing all of this in real time together. Colleagues surround you and will tell you the truth when they say, I have no idea what I'm doing either, but let's figure this out together. The way forward is collaborative. Wherever all of this is going, we're going there together. I saw Dr. Sam Ballantyne this morning, who taught me to pick up those threads of Scripture and follow their path, follow their trajectory all the way across as those themes move. That work is part of the ministry and ethics of biblical interpretation. And I think this theme of togetherness, God calling a people, is one of those first, most essential threads we have to pick up and follow across our sacred texts. God is calling us as a people. You are not alone. You do not have to do this work alone. God says, I am with you Behold, I'm making a new thing. Do you not sense it? When we hold these sacred texts in our hand, they're whispering to us if we will listen to them. And these words were first whispered to folks who had lost everything but each other. Far from home, nowhere near temple, no power, no prestige. Exiles, afraid they had lost their God too. It is into these moments of utter crisis and despair and fear that the divine always speaks most boldly. Not only does God whisper to them of a new thing that is coming, but invites these frightened and far from home people to be part of the new thing that is coming to life as witnesses to the sacred impossibilities of God. Crooked will be made straight, low will be lifted up, rivers will show up in the desert. Friends, you are witnesses. You are witnesses to the power and presence and movement of God in this old world. You are witnesses to the new work God is doing. You are witnesses formed by a loving God, drawn into this story as sacred rememberers. Your work is to whisper alongside God to anyone who will listen, do not be afraid. God is making a new thing. Do you not sense it? And then you work alongside the people God is forming together and you help them to sense it and listen for it. And when you come up empty and they sense it, then you listen to them. In the 20 years I have served congregations, I've come to believe the highest and holiest day of our year, the one that is most central to our faith, is Maundy Thursday. It is my very favorite night of the year as we gather at dusk and dip our hands into the water, remembering Christ washing the disciples' feet, even the one he knew who would betray him. We break bread and we dip it in a common cup. We speak aloud the mandate given to us that night. This command I give you, love one another. Everyone will know you are my disciples because you have love for one another. This Jesus way was meant to be a revolution of love, and we turned it into budgets and bylaws to maintain. This Jesus way was meant for us to organize around a love so big and so strong that the empire would feel the threat to its power. And we turned it into institutions that need the empire for the tax break. And the tricky thing is, I fully believe I'm right about this, and my livelihood is linked to protecting the institution and the budget and the bylaws instead of leading the love revolution into the streets. I want the love revolution more than I want the paycheck, and I don't know what to do about that. I have some figuring out work to do, and I need your help if I'm going to do it. I need for you to do this paradigm shifting with me. I need you to help work on the rummage sale with me. What do? How do we guarantee we're tossing the right stuff out to free ourselves to Christ's radical movement of people committed to love? Well, BTSR gave us some hints and clues and hunches and whispers. Last night, Dr. Tom Graves brought us back to the origin of the servant's towel, the symbol of BTSR. I keep my towel in my office along with a pitcher and basin given to me by the Westover Baptist Church and my dear friend Justin Joplin. And I also keep this scrap of fabric that I received from Victoria Atkinson White at my very first opening convocation in 2003. When I was brought into this servant community. I think I need the reminder that this is a servant community that has trained and shaped me for this world. We are not called to be TED Talk pastors. We are not called to be innovation experts or entrepreneurial success stories. We might want to be because we want success and we want to win. But you and I both know that that kind of desire is the stuff of ego. And the measure of church success has been ego-driven for far too long because we valued counting people and pews and dollars and plates more than we valued anything else. Instead, BTSR handed us a towel with our name on it. Dr. Graves shared last night That the idea and the phrase came from the incomparable Alliance of Baptist pastor Nancy Hastings Sehested, who pointed back to the central gospel love story of John 13 and said, ministry is finding a towel with your name on it. This is our work. This is the people God is forming. This is our way forward, even if we don't know quite together what shape this thing is going to take. The dear writer and woman of valor, Rachel Held Evans, reflecting on this impulse we have in our church culture to win at doing church, said this: "It's strange that Christians so rarely talk about failure when we claim to follow a guy whose 3-year ministry was cut short by his crucifixion. Stranger still is our fascination with so-called celebrity pastors whose personhood we flatten out and consume like faces in a tabloid aisle. But as nearly every denomination in the United States faces declining membership and waning influence, Christians may need to get used to the idea of measuring success and significance by something other than money and fame and power. No one ever said that the fruit of the Spirit is relevance or impact or even revival. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The sort of stuff that, let's face it, doesn't always sell well. I wonder if the role of the clergy in this age," she continued, "is not to dispense information or guard the prestige of their authority, but rather to go first, to volunteer the truth about their sins, their dreams, their failures, and their fears in order to free others to do the same. Such an approach may repel the masses who are looking for easy answers from flawless leaders, but I think it might make more disciples of Jesus, and I think it might make happier and healthier pastors. There is a difference, after all, between preaching success and preaching resurrection. Our path is the muddier one." Friends, thank you for joining me in this work. I need to work alongside you. I need you to whisper to me, "Do not be afraid." And when my ego takes the lead, I need you to call me back to love. When we start hoarding and we can't quite bring ourselves to toss something else into the rummage pile just yet, we need you, all of us need you, to say to us, "Quiet down. God is doing a new thing. Can you sense it?" When we frantically cling to the old ways and the old structures and we fear their demise, we need you to remind us, all of us, that our God is the one who makes rivers in the desert. Prepare us to be amazed and surprised. Call us to the muddy path. Grab the towel with your name on it and love us into the revolutionary way of Jesus the Christ. We are counting on you, my sisters and brothers, to lead the way. Amen.